And now, let's take a look at what's new at BoardGameBliss.com with Nick Meanahan. Hey folks, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and it's time for another episode of What's New at BoardGameBliss.com. Board Game Bliss is my amazing sponsor, and we do this little bit every month or so, just to let you know some of the newest, hottest titles that are coming out at the store. And I really love Board Game Bliss. I'll say this over and over and over again ad nauseum. I'm very, very proud to have them as a sponsor. And in fact, if you are in the Toronto area, they're up based out of Canada. But don't let that put you off from ordering if you live in the United States, because their shipping rates are fantastic and they have a fantastic selection. I'll talk more about that. But if you do live in Toronto, if you're going to be visiting Toronto, they just opened a brand new storefront that looks fantastic. It's huge open space. They have it looks like they're Calyx bookshelves, just like the ones that I have here, just full of games all around the store, and there is some certain handsome devil playing on the TV in the background while you're playing your games. But you don't have to watch that if you don't want to. And I'm really just so happy for them that they're doing so well, that the store is growing, that their whole business is growing. You know, I know that Board Game Bliss was around for long before I came around, and they'll be here long after I'm dragged through the streets and burned in effigy by all the publishers who hate me and so on and so forth. But still, I am very happy that I've had at least some small part in helping them to grow and to realize their dream, because they're just great people, great store, great everything. Very, very proud of them. So let's go ahead and get to the games. Now, I will give the standard disclaimer that my talking about these games is not necessarily approval of these games. In fact, yes, I have not actually played any of the games we're going to talk about today, but I did pick games that the owner of Board Game Bliss gives me a huge list of games to look through and just pick out the ones that I want to talk about and spotlight the most. And so these are the ones that interested me personally. So these are not endorsements. I haven't fully reviewed these games, but I will tell you that some of these games I've ordered for myself. That's how interested I am in them. So take that for whatever it's worth. So let's go ahead and get to it. First one up is Assault on Doomrock, the second edition, along with the expansion Doompocalypse. Now, this game has been around for, I think, a while now. It's been a couple of years, and it was very interesting because it was one of the few notable board games that was funded through Indiegogo, not Kickstarter. Although I think for this second edition, they actually ended up going to Kickstarter, which was probably in their best interest. I have never used Indiegogo before because I look at it and it's like junk. But in any case, Assault on Doomrock seems pretty interesting. I've heard some mixed things, but some reviewers really, really love it. And what's interesting to me about it now, I never realized before, is that it's got a solo mode. So that's got me more interested nowadays as I'm clamoring to go through my collection and play as many games as I possibly can in order to put out more content. I'm always looking for solo stuff, so Assault on Doomrock has that. The cover really puts me off, but the theme and what you do during the game, you know, fantasy warriors and things like that, does appeal to me, so check it out if you haven't already. Along those same lines, we have Castle Assault, which is either a two-player head-to-head competitive fantasy game or a solo game. And now what's interesting here is that the solo game that they have in the box is like fully fleshed out. You have scenarios and missions, and you're trying to like play through a game, which I thought was pretty neat of them, almost as if the game was meant to be a solo game and they tacked on the two-player mode. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but if you do, whether you play it like that or not, you are essentially sending heroes and monsters up against your opponent's castle in order to destroy it. Looks like it has very good artwork, and it seems very interesting to me. The Curse of the Black Dice from Board and Dice. I'm sorry, I haven't been naming the publishers so far. Assault on Doomrock was from BD Games, and Castle Assault was from Momentum Volsk. The Curse of the Black Dice is from Board and Dice, and they are the publisher of, what's it called, Dice Brewing, which I didn't like at all. However, the Curse of the Black Dice actually looks pretty interesting, despite the fact that I don't like pirates. You have a lot of custom black dice that look really cool, and you go, this is another game where even though it's competitive, you go through missions and scenarios, which is always a cool thing, because I think it adds a lot of variety to a game, and you're trying to end up with the least of like the curse dice, as the name of the game implies. Seems kind of neat. Termini, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but it's supposed to be like termites. Termini from Rebel.pl, who I believe was the publisher of Race to the Rhine, which was a pretty interesting sort of semi-war game, semi-cooperative game. But Termini is all about having a termite hive, which it's really interesting. I think that's kind of one of the new, maybe sub-fads that people aren't really talking a lot about, but I'm seeing more and more games based on insect colonies and hives. Like there was the game I previewed called Brilliance. There was Colony Wars. I feel like there's a couple other, Colony Clash. There's probably a couple others out there I just can't think about right now. But it's really interesting. I think it's a neat idea that lends itself to a game. So, and this is coming at it from the termite angle. So who knows? Then you have Aya. This is probably one of the most unique games that I've got on the list. This one is from Act In Games. This one is, I believe it's cooperative. It's kind of like Dominoes. You are setting up like this tour through some sort of park to go through like a hot spring, something like that. Really beautiful looking game, but you're setting up all of these different tiles that at the end you're supposed to knock over like dominoes. I've heard people say it's more of an activity than a game. I'm not sure how true that is, but it looks fantastic. If you're just into games for spectacle or just want something very interesting that's that kind of breaks the mold of other games that are out there, I would definitely give this one a look. Taverna. Now, Taverna is the only game on this list that I actually have in my collection right this moment. And in fact, I rushed to get it when it was first unveiled at Essen from the publisher. And then it just sat here forever. So I can't give my opinion on it. Unfortunately, I haven't played it yet. It looks very cool. It's a fantasy-themed game, but instead of like a warrior going out and fighting monsters, you are a tavern keeper. And you are trying to, I think it's like multiple tavern keepers in the same tavern or something like that, you and the other players, and you're trying to manipulate the patrons of the bar of all these different races and factions, like the ambassador, something to that effect. It looks good. I mean, the artwork looks great, and I like the theme of it. I hope it's not too dry and economical, but one day I will eventually play it. Right now it's in, as Joe Wiggins, superfans, calls it board game purgatory. I always laugh when I think about that. Carson City Big Box. This is from Quined Games. Carson City has been around for quite a while. It's got a pretty good following, at least a solid cult following amongst board gamers, because it is a worker placement game, one of the very first notable ones after Kalis, but it's also thematic, much more so than Kalis. This one is an Old West game. Again, that's not a theme that I'm personally a fan of, but this game has really high marks from a lot of different reviewers and just fans in general. This new big box edition, I saw it when it was on Kickstarter. It looks really, really good component-wise. I don't know, it doesn't mean much to me, but there's a note on the Board Game Bliss site that includes the lawyer editor tile, like very prominently, so maybe some versions of the game are missing that, or some printings of the game are missing that, but they are included in the one on Board Game Bliss. And this is the big box, so it includes all these different expansions. If you've ever been interested in Carson City and been waiting to pull the trigger, I cannot imagine they will ever do a version nicer than this, so check it out. And then finally, we'll end with the one I'm actually most interested in. I probably should have done this at the top. That is the Justice League Hero Dice sets. There's two different sets, Batman and Superman. And this is like a cooperative dice game, but with only one set, you can only play it solo. If you play with two sets, you can play with multiple players. And in fact, there's a way you can just play with like the same set multiple times. Like you can have two Batman sets, and there's some sort of weird like doppelganger rule. I don't know about that, but at the very least right now they have two sets out, Batman and Superman. You can play them together and try to fight a bunch of villains using dice rolling and playing cards. I'm very, very interested in this one. It's one of those weird situations where some company in, I think it's Heidelberger Spielverlag, I'm sorry, had the rights somehow to the European DC-based games. But no one over here in the States actually has those rights at this moment. As you know, like WizKids, I think, has the rights to DC properties for board games other than like Hasbro's mainstream games, mass market games. But I don't think they'd ever release these games. I think they're pretty much focused on DC as it relates to HeroClix and to Dice Masters. So I don't know if this game's ever going to be coming stateside. This might actually be the only chance for you to get it, hopefully through Board Game Bliss importing it, because it looks really interesting to me. And going back to what I said in the beginning, solo, that's kind of interesting to me now. I want to try more games and see if they function really well as a solo game. And the ability to play with both sets, not only to have variety for solo games, but also to potentially play with another player, super interests me. So hopefully you'll give that one a look. And that is it. Of course, that's not it. There are a ton of new games on Board Game Bliss. Just in the last month, I was really amazed by everything that was there. It was really hard for me personally to put together an order because there was so much stuff that I wanted, and I had to just say, I've already got too many games in Purgatory. I can't get any more. But don't let that stop you. Go and check it out. They have new games. They have hidden gems from years ago. There's a huge selection of stuff and imported games that are really hard to get here. Just check it out. You will lose yourself in that site for a long period of time, just like falling into the Wikipedia vortex. But in any case, thank you so much for supporting me and for supporting my awesome sponsor, BoardGameBliss.com. Thank you so much. Take care.